Hello, my name is Cole Anderson. Welcome back to The Independent Pianist. Today I offer you my first Chopin Nocturne on the channel. This is my favorite Chopin Nocturne, just by the way. It has been for years and one of my very favorite pieces by Chopin in general. I've oftentimes been surprised that Chopin's nocturnes are dismissed frequently as rather lightweight salon pieces, and they even get played that way often enough. But I think that this is a serious mistake. These nocturnes, particularly the later ones, are some of Chopin's most psychologically intense creations. They're right up there with the ballades in this regard. They're not lightweight at all. And by psychologically intense, I mean that they cover a huge range of moods and are very concentrated. So from measure to measure, we experience worlds of emotion. The Opus 62 nocturnes are among a handful of pieces that Chopin wrote in 1846 to 1847. These include the Opus 63 mazurkas, the Opus 64 waltzes, and the cello sonata Opus 65, which was, of course, his last published work. And these works were the last things that he wrote before his extended period of compositional silence in the 2 years prior to his death. This coincided with the rapid decline in his health and his final, somewhat disastrous voyage to the British Isles, which probably hastened his demise. Chopin was in a difficult state at that time. His 9-year relationship with the writer George Sand had recently disintegrated, leaving him in an emotionally unsettled state, and his popularity as a teacher was also on the wane as well. As you might know, Chopin very rarely played public concerts, public performances. Although those performances were highly cherished by those lucky few who got to hear him, most of his income came as a teacher for the aristocracy. He did, however, play a last concert in Paris with the cellist Franchomme of movements from his cello sonata, and then he went to England and Scotland. He was lured on this trip by the prospect of performances and teaching opportunities, which were indeed quite real, but unfortunately the journey taxed him to an extreme degree, and he died less than a year after his return to Paris. His compositional output had actually been dropping for years, really since 1842, when his health really started to take a turn for the worse. He only completed a small number of pieces each year from that point up until 1846, 1847, but these, to my mind, are some of his most perfect works, things that I really cherish greatly. As I said, this nocturne has long been one of my favorites among Chopin's compositions, and perhaps because of that, I have a very idiosyncratic idea about how it should be played. I know that the first time I played this for my teacher, Arthur Green, during my doctorate days way back in 2014 or 2015, his immediate reaction was, "I think you play this way too slowly." So I tried his tempo during the lesson, which indeed is generally the tempo that you hear people play this piece at. And then I went away, and I'm sorry to say I ended up ignoring his advice completely. I never could feel comfortable playing at the more flowing pace that is generally adopted in this piece. To me, it just trivializes this deeply felt emotional work to me. Maybe the written indications of lento, slow, and sostenuto, sustained, are a little bit on my side, but I think the real crux of the issue is the image that I have of this piece in my mind. So for me, the opening is a walking tempo, but it's a very slow walking pace, the way you would walk when abstracted and deep in reflection. And it becomes apparent to me during the course of the piece that we are in fact walking down the pathways of memory. It's almost like Chopin is reviewing every beautiful and distressing experience that he has ever known, but from a place of calmness and distance, utterly removed from the turbulence of activity. The last few bars seem almost like a farewell, with the faintest hint of a benediction. It's one of the great endings in music, to my mind. So, a very personal idea, as you can see, and not one that I could possibly give up to conform to the generally accepted tempo norm for this nocturne. I knew that I played the piece slower than usual, but I was actually surprised after making my recording to see that my version clocks in at 7.5 minutes, which is a good minute and a half longer than most other versions. I guess I was surprised at how significant the difference in tempo really was. So even people who play the opening close to my tempo, and there's only a couple that I found, they generally speed up more in the course of the piece. So in this one instance, I'm taking kind of an extreme stance, and I'm very interested to hear what you as the listener feel when you hear this piece from this perspective. Do you think I'm justified or not in the kind of eccentric approach that I take? So please take a moment and comment below, share your thoughts, in addition to liking the video and subscribing, of course. And I'll see you next week as usual for more music and discussion.